November the 4th, 2012. Back from his Olympic triumph in London, Oscar Pistorius is on the red carpet with a new girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp. The media wants an interview, but her voice is weak.
I'm sick. Do you want to do a little one?
It's their first date, arranged just an hour and a half earlier.
Hi, I'm Oscar's date tonight. He needed a date at the last minute, so it's like, Riva, just throw your stuff together and come and be my date.
Why, she's asked, is Oscar free tonight?
It's funny, hey? Don't know how that worked out.
Is she looking forward to her surprise night out?
I'm excited just to enjoy the evening, the entertainment, just everything as a whole. Just a fun night out. Something different. Not a club. Nothing boring. It's exciting.
And what does she think of her date, Oscar Pistorius?
Oscar's a very, very sexy boy. But he doesn't do it in an arrogant, obnoxious way. He does it in a very classy, understated. He always has a good, simple suit on. Yeah. He's a gentleman. Thank you.
On count 1, murder, the accused is found not guilty and is discharged. Instead, he is found guilty of culpable homicide.
Before I knew it, I'd fired 4 shots at the door.
In this programme, behind the scenes of the Pistorius trial, with the parents of the victim.
Only people that have gone through this will understand.
My child, my most precious child, is gone.
I'm Rick Edwards. Within days of the shooting, I travelled to South Africa for BBC 3 to find out what really happened. Tonight, the dramatic courtroom moments broadcast to a worldwide audience.
They're calling this the trial of the century.
The private, fearful text message from Riva to Oscar.
I'm scared of you sometimes, and how you snap at me, and of how you will react to me.
The defence video and messages that suggested a closer relationship.
She says, I think today is a good day to tell you that. And then it says, I love you.
I realised that she cared for him. She was looking for a soulmate.
You killed Riva Steenkamp, that's what you did.
My mistake is that I took Riva's life on it.
You killed her, you shot and killed her.
But Pistorius insists it was a tragic accident.
I thought that there was a burglar that was gaining entry into my home. I grabbed my firearm from underneath the bed. I was simply trying to protect Riva.
Mr. Pistorius, please stand up.
The sentencing hearing is scheduled for next month. Tonight, Riva's parents speak about the verdict and the future.
The trial of the decade got underway today in the High Court in Pretoria.
On March the 3rd, 2014, the eyes of the world were focused on a courtroom in Pretoria.
In South Africa, the long-awaited trial has begun of the world-famous athlete and, until last year, national hero Oscar Pistorius.
The huge media entourage was on alert for the main arrivals. The accused, Oscar Pistorius. An international hero and inspiration for millions as the first double amputee to compete in the Olympic Games. Now Pistorius, pleading not guilty, was facing a charge of premeditated murder of his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp, a model, reality TV star and daughter of June Steenkamp.
She had a promising future, everything. And now it's gone. And he's got to take responsibility for that, no matter what the outcome is.
Riva's mum made a 700-mile journey for the opening of the trial, with a front row seat reserved.
Let us through, please. I'm Advocate De Bruin. So I've got the victim's mother here, Mrs. Steenkamp, and they arranged that we can go right to the gate. Okay, please.
The tension was clear.
How are you feeling?
Very nervous.
You maybe want to share with us what's going through your mind?
I was sort of preparing myself to be strong, and I didn't want to speak about it. I just wanted to carry on, keep my dignity and be who I am.
But first, she and her lawyer had to brave the media crush in the torrential rain.
It was very hectic. They wouldn't move out the way, you know, they kind of threw their umbrellas on the floor because it was raining and just trodden on them because they were just wanting to get the pictures.
Minutes later, flanked by bodyguards, Oscar Pistorius appeared, charging through a phalanx of flashing cameras without stopping. June Steenkamp wanted the answer to the central question. Why was her daughter killed? And she wanted to look into the eyes of the man who fired the gun.
I've never met him, you know. I've never met him at all. And he must see me, that I am there. This is the mother of the child that you've killed, the woman that you've killed. And that's just that impact that the reason that I want to go.
Days before her first sight of Oscar Pistorius, 700 miles away in Port Elizabeth on the Indian Ocean coast, June Steenkamp and Reva's father, Barry, allowed our cameras inside their home. Preparing for the trial, but trying to keep an open mind about what happened to Reva.
I've got no revengeful feelings, and I've forgiven Oscar for what he's done. But I mean, he has killed her. And even if he made a mistake, it's a huge mistake. It's cost her her life, and cost us Reva's life.
I've got my own feelings inside as to what happened. But what I do want to do is just to talk to him, to have a chat to him man to man. Guilty or not guilty or whatever it is, I would like to have a talk. That would help me a lot.
June Steenkamp's last conversation with her daughter was on February the 13th, 2013, as Reva drove to the home of Oscar Pistorius. Just before 6 p.m, a surveillance camera filmed Reva behind the wheel of her silver Mini, chatting and smiling with the guards who patrolled the high-security, gated community. 10 minutes later, Oscar arrived, driving a white BMW. By 10 p.m, Oscar Pistorius said the couple had eaten and were getting ready for bed. He'd taken off his prosthetic legs and was watching TV, while Reva was doing her yoga exercises. Not much later, according to Pistorius, they were both fast asleep. Reva's Valentine's Day gift and card to Oscar was unopened. We've recreated the scene fully lit to give you an idea of the layout of the bedroom and the estimated £1.3 million a year in sponsorship, and the symbols of success: celebrity friends, fast sports cars, plus a newfound interest in guns, buying a 9mm pistol and applying for 6 firearm licenses. In November 2012, back home from London, Oscar Pistorius started appearing in public with Reva Steenkamp. The media couldn't get enough of the couple, two people who seem to have everything.
Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius has been charged with murder after
So when news broke of a shooting at the Pistorius home,
the incident happened in Pretoria in the early hours of the morning.
It reverberated around the world.
As a South African journalist, and as a South African actually, I mean, this is a very conflicted narrative, because you want to believe him. You really, 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 really want to believe him.
Was Oscar telling the truth? Was it, as he said, all a tragic accident? Or were the police right? Was it premeditated murder?
He killed her. There is no doubt of the fact that he killed her. But what was his intention?
It was a question that haunted Reva's parents, June and Barry Steenkamp.
She must have suffered so much in that toilet. Why couldn't I be protecting her? Because we always protected her. We have to learn to live without Reva now. But she was such a big part of our life. She never really let go of us. You know, a child grows up, they move on. But she was always, every Saturday she phoned me, every Sunday she phoned her father.
Only people that have gone through this will understand. It's easy for other people to look in and see and listen and have their thoughts, but only once they've gone through it will they know what we feel.
Reva Steenkamp was Barry and June's only child together. They were both divorcees with families when they met and married in 1981.
Beautiful outside and inside. That was her quality. Caring and loving for others. Probably before herself, before she would put herself, she would put others before her. So when she was 2 years old, she was in the cupboard with the flour and toothpaste. Her whole face is covered in the flour. She's emptied the whole cupboard.
Yeah.
A photo shoot for the wedding dresses on the beach.
Out of all of the photographs, this is my favourite one. She loved dressing up in that way with like wedding dresses on.
Just makes Barry think of what she would have been in her own wedding, you know?
The Steenkamp home has become a shrine to Riva. Every photograph, school certificate and souvenir proudly displayed. Among the treasured possessions, 2 very special paintings by a teenage girl which, for Mum and Dad, now suggest a hidden message.
Here's Riva. Here in the field next door is a man with a gun. And he's standing under a tree and it's pointing towards Riva, and she's standing here and she has her wings, and here are the steps going to heaven. That's how I feel that she painted this when she was 15 years old. So it's quite like a premonition almost. And it is unbelievable if you think of it.
Yeah, and here's another one which is even more uncanny and chilling than the other one. Also of a painting that Riva had done for us when she was young. When the newspapers came out and the media came out, and the first picture that was shown was with Riva on the toilet seat where she had been killed, and it's virtually identical.
The position and everything.
The position that they had shown in the newspapers, and I just couldn't believe it.
Images with particular meaning for parents who'd watched the transformation of the thoughtful schoolgirl into top celebrity model. A winning combination of intelligence, glamour and steely determination.
I thought this was going to be the craziest outfit, but really it's not. I've seen some insane things today.
The legal graduate intended to make the law her future, but in 2012, Riva's TV career was taking off.
We're at the Wrangler launch.
And she was using her growing fame to campaign, speaking out on violence against women.
One just wonders what she could have done wonderful things in the world. Especially for the abused women she was going to work for, just try and go to schools. And the day she was killed, the next day she was going to a school to speak to young girls about abused women and how they must find a voice. They don't have to keep quiet, they can. And she was going to do work in that direction. You know, that she was in the limelight so she could speak now and be heard about that.
In South Africa, everyone heard about Riva Steenkamp the moment she was first seen on a red carpet date with Oscar Pistorius.
Hi, I'm Oscar's date tonight.
All I said to myself, oh, here we go. You know, I thought most probably it's one of these things that where they go out and they're in the limelight and partner together, you know, as far as advertising or events are concerned. Yeah. That is what I thought.
Oscar and Riva dated for 3 months, but Riva's parents had almost no contact with the Olympic star, though there was one memorable phone call.
She was in the car with him and she said, "Mommy, Oscar's driving like an absolute lunatic." And she said, "I'm afraid, I'm scared." So I said, "Will you put him on the phone to me and I will talk to him?" And I said, "If you hurt my baby, I will have you bumped off or wiped out, one of the two." And he straight away said he's very sorry, and then he put the phone down. And Riva said he slowed down immediately.
But weeks later, it would be a very different story. Riva was dead, killed by Oscar. Preparing to travel to the trial where Pistorius was to claim his innocence, Riva's mother had no thoughts of revenge.
It's too late for that. What good is that going to do? It's just going to hurt me as a person. It's just going to rot inside me. I must just leave it up to the law. They must They must make the decision and then they must make the punishment. And I don't have things in my head that I want him to suffer or be, you know, in jail for the rest of his life. It's not what I want. But he must take responsibility for what he's done. For this huge, he says it's a mistake, it's a huge mistake. That I'm sure that it could have checked better or whatever.
Me personally, I'd hate to be Oscar Pistorius. The way he must be feeling now with the case coming up. Fear and worry, this and that. I don't actually wish on my worst enemy.
Some people might find it fascinating that you feel for him at this stage. What would you say to that?
No, I wouldn't like to be him now. I wouldn't like to be in his shoes. I wouldn't like to be to have his feelings this evening and tomorrow. It must be the most awful thing to go out there and fight for your life, whether you're wrong or right, and that's.
But he's the man who killed your daughter.
Yes.
That is right. We don't forget that. We know that. But we do understand, like, what other people, whether innocent or guilty, what they feel like as well.
Both parents had intended to make the journey to the trial, accompanied by June's other daughter Simone, Riva's half-sister. But at the last minute, plans had to change.
Yes, I have had a little bit of a problem.
He had a stroke. But a little stroke, but still, it went through his brain and collapsed the whole one side of his face.
But anyway...
And it's a warning, you know, it's a warning that he mustn't get upset about things.
Yeah, it's the most awful feeling that June and Simone going up for the trial. I can't take it. Later on, yes, I will most probably build up enough courage to go.
They knew that in court, the full extent of Riva's injuries would be made public for the first time. Details they didn't want to hear.
No, that's going to be the worst.
We've been warned about that.
Yeah.
That there will be certain gruesome pictures or details.
And we can't do that. We want to know what happened, but we can't do that. It would just be too much.
381 days after Riva was killed, with a goodbye kiss for Riva's dad, her mum set off for the murder trial. It was the first time that June Steenkamp would see Oscar Pistorius.
It'll be very hard for me to go there, but I want to go there.
She believed it would be an important moment for herself and for Oscar.
I think he has to see me, the mother, the person who gave birth to her, that he's taken that away. That's what I want to see. That's why I want to look in his face, and he must look in mine. He must see now that I am there for justice for Riva, no matter what happened. And the truth, obviously.
But the encounter she imagined didn't quite happen.
He came in and he just looked straight in front of him. He didn't look at me or anything. He just walked straight ahead, and almost with his head slightly down, or maybe away from me, you know. So I don't know if that was on purpose or what.
The first count against the accused, count 1, is one of murder. In the district of Pretoria, the accused did unlawfully and intentionally kill a person, to wit, Riva Steenkamp.
Do you understand the charges, Mr. Pistorius?
I do, my lady.
How do you plead?
Not guilty, my lady.
I wasn't prepared for him to say not guilty, but obviously he was saying not guilty to premeditated murder. But my daughter is dead. She's never coming back.
In the year since Riva's death, June Steenkamp said that she hadn't been able to fully grieve. But in the courtroom, reality finally set in.
I understood that she's gone. That was what came home to me. It just is a realization that she's actually dead. This is now the truth. This has happened. It's reality.
June Steenkamp listened to Oscar's explanation, read by his defence team.
Whilst I admit that I inflicted the fatal gunshot wounds to Riva, this occurrence was indeed an accident, and that I had mistakenly believed that an intruder or intruders had entered my home and posed an imminent threat to Riva and me.
Oscar Pistorius sat in the dock as the prosecutor made the case against him.
We argue that the accused version...
The charge was that he'd invented the story about an intruder. He always knew it was Riva behind the door.
The only inference from the circumstantial evidence would be that the accused shot and killed the deceased with direct intent to kill.
Is this something that you're going to work?
The world was watching on live television.
It looks like the trial's about to start.
Witnesses had a choice: appear on camera or only have their voices heard. The prosecution would be first to present its case. Their first witness chose to stay off camera. Michelle Berger, a university lecturer, lived 193 yards from Oscar Pistorius. As with every witness, she addressed her answers to the judge, calling her my lady.
I was woken up by a woman's petrified screams. My lady, what I can say to the court is her shouts, her screams were petrifying. I knew something terrible was happening in that house. I thought they were being attacked in their house. You only shout like that if your life is really threatened. But just before the gunshots, it was blood-curdling. It was something that leaves you cold. It's something you can't portray in the court. You can't explain it. You just know that woman's life was really threatened.
Barry Rue, who led the Pistorius defence team, challenged the witness. First, was she sure she heard gunshots or the sound of a cricket bat striking the door?
Why could it not have been the cricket bat that you hear bashing the door?
My lady, I clearly heard full gunshots after I made the telephone call.
Then, did she really hear Riva screaming, or was it Oscar?
My lady, I'm sure what I heard was a woman, so I'm quite convinced it wasn't Mr. Pistorius.
I know you believe you heard him.
Yeah.
All I say is, when he's anxious, his voice, when it pitches, it sounds like a woman screaming.
Day one had been emotional and exhausting. And at the end, June Steenkamp came face to face not with Oscar, but with his brother Carl.
It was a surprise, because no one from the family has ever come towards me to say anything. They said they're sorry and they've done nothing, and they're also struggling with their problems. So I accept that.
Reliving the events of the night became unbearable for some witnesses.
It was awful to hear a shout before the shots.
Madam, I know that you're emotional now. This is almost done. I'm going to ask you.
The prosecution said that if neighbours could hear a woman screaming before and during gunshots, Pistorius must have known it was Riva, not an intruder. The Pistorius defence team claimed the high-pitched screams could have come from Oscar, not a woman.
From what you assume to have been a woman.
That's correct.
But you cannot be 100% correct in that assertion, can you?
In my recollection, I'm 100% absolutely convinced it was a female.
Riva's mum had returned home after day one. But as week 3 began, she was back in court.
I feel that I have to be there. That my presence is a good thing for the people around me. To see that I'm there. Because there were so many questions. Why isn't June there, you know? Why am I not there? I must be there. And I just have to be strong.
Again, she was in the same room as Oscar Pistorius. This time, she was able to look him in the face.
And he pointedly looked at me, stopped in front of me and said, "Good morning." That was it.
Barry Bateman, a journalist and author of a book on the case, is seen in this photo, having witnessed the moment.
And there was a slight recognition from June as well. But she's been, quite brave to be there and to have to listen to this here and have to come face to face with the man who shot her daughter.
Days earlier, the court had heard the full extent of Riva's fatal injuries. The autopsy report was so distressing, the judge took action.
No, there shall be no broadcast of the evidence.
In court, Oscar Pistorius wept and vomited as the pathologist testified.
He became quite emotional. There were times when you could see he was physically ill. You could hear him gagging. It was quite nasty in court listening to this.
As more evidence emerged, June Steenkamp's feelings began to harden.
I'm angry now. When I hear the details of exactly what happened, I'm angry now. I'm still forgiving, but I'm angry. I think just the injuries and the fear that she must have had in that bathroom, those are the things that get to me, straight to my soul, my heart and my soul.
She listened to the police ballistics expert describe how he believed her daughter was killed.
My opinion was there's 4 shots fired at the crime scene.
Captain Christian Mangena said Riva was standing behind the door and facing it when the first shot hit her right hip.
After the infliction of the wound on the hip, she fell down on top of a magazine rack. The deceased was most probably seated in a defensive position, whereby it could be something like in this position. The arm was lifted up and was in front of her chest. 3 shots, to be that doof, doof, doof.
Pistorius covered his own head. He said he didn't know Riva was behind the door. Meanwhile, June Steenkamp looked straight ahead.
I just try and make myself strong. I don't want to be emotional in front of other people. That is one thing I don't want to be. And then when I come home, then everything comes out. Then I can cry, and because it's too emotional for me. It's too much to ask any mother to do. It's too much for any mother to see that's their child and what they've been through, what they've suffered, how they died.
The dramatic finale of the prosecution case, a text from Riva to Oscar, 3 weeks before she was killed.
We are living in a double standard relationship where you can be mad about how I deal with stuff when you are very quick to act. Cold, you do everything to throw tantrums in front of people. I have been upset by you for 2 days now. I'm scared of you sometimes and how you snap at me and of how you will react to me.
But Oscar's advocate Barry Rue fought back, introducing affectionate text messages between the couple and playing this CCTV footage of Oscar and Riva kissing.
I'm going to show you this clip, and I want you to look at it and see if that would conform to the emails, the loving emails that you've seen.
I realized that she cared for him. She wasn't someone who would continue a relationship unless she was really interested. You know, she was looking for a soulmate, and she seemed, from some of those messages, she seemed in love or falling in love maybe.
On day 15, after calling 21 witnesses, the prosecution rested its case.
I have no further.
Thank you very much.
Heading to court each day had become one of the hardest parts of the trial for Riva's mother.
When I'm driving to court, I get very emotional because I look in the streets and I know that she's not there. You understand? She's missing from the whole picture. Her life's been taken away. She's never going to have a baby. She's never going to have a wedding. I'm never going to have her grandchildren. Those are things that we were looking forward to. And my child, my most precious child, is gone. It's just too much for me. He's taken that away from me. He has taken that away from me.
Murder accused Oscar Pistorius says he relives the terror of killing Riva Steenkamp every single day.
Monday, April the 7th. Oscar Pistorius takes the stand. He begins with a direct statement to Riva's family.
I would like to take this opportunity to apologise to Mrs. and Mr. Steenkamp.
Like some witnesses before him, Pistorius declined to appear on camera.
I wake up every morning, you're the first people I think of, the first people I pray for. I can't imagine the pain and the sorrow and the emptiness that I've caused you and your family. I was simply trying to protect Riva. I can promise that when she went to bed that night, she felt loved.
He said their relationship was growing stronger.
I was very keen on Riva. Times it went, we kind of spoke and you know, the relationship built up to a point in, I'd say mid-January. Mid-January, that we really knew, that we started caring about each other, we started talking about future plans.
In court there was reference to WhatsApp messages.
She said it's okay to argue about the things we argue about. At least it's not fundamental values. And then I sent her a message saying, kiss, kiss, you're right, my angel. A kiss, kiss. Thank you for being the most beautiful person to me. I'm crazy about you, and when I look at you, I smile inside.
Ultimately, the judge said the messages between Riva and Oscar had no bearing on the case. In the witness box, Oscar Pistorius told his story of what happened on the night Riva died.
It must have been around just before 8 or 8 o'clock. I came into my room and I opened the balcony doors. It was a very humid evening.
He said he put 2 fans on the balcony to draw cool air into the room. He and Riva then went to bed.
I woke up in the early hours of the 14th of February. It was extremely warm in my room. I sat up in bed. I noticed that the fans were still running and that the door was still open, although the lights had been switched off. Riva was still awake, or she was obviously not sleeping. She rolled over to me and she said, "Can't you sleep, my baba?" And I said, "No, I can't." And
Pistorius said he got out of bed and brought in the fans from the balcony, drawing the curtains to darken the room. Then he heard a noise.
It was at this point that I heard a window open in the bathroom. It sounded like the window sliding open. My lady, that's the moment that everything changed. I thought that there was a burglar that was gaining entry into my home. I grabbed my firearm from underneath the bed. I shouted for Riva to get on the floor. I shouted for her to phone the police. I got to the entrance of the bathroom. I stood there for some time. I'm not sure how long. I wasn't sure if somebody was going to come out of the toilet to attack me. And then I heard a noise from inside the toilet. What I perceived to be somebody coming out of the toilet. Before I knew it, I'd fired 4 shots at the door.
Pistorius said he rushed back to the bedroom to find Riva. She wasn't there.
I think it was at that point, my lady, that it first dawned upon me that it could be Riva that was in the bathroom or in the toilet.
He said that he quickly put on his prosthetic legs and tried to kick down the door.
I was screaming and shouting the whole time, crying out. I was crying out for the Lord to help me. I was crying out for Riva. I was screaming.
The door didn't open, so he said he struck it with a cricket bat, breaking through a wooden panel.
Whilst I leant over the partition to get in, I saw the key, so I took it and I unlocked the door and I flung the door open. I threw it open and I sat over Riva and I cried. And I don't know how long I was there for. She wasn't breathing.
I think we'll take an adjournment. Court will adjourn.
Next, Oscar Pistorius' testimony would be challenged. He was cross-examined by the prosecutor Harry Nell, nicknamed the Pitbull.
You made a mistake.
That's correct.
You killed a person, that's what you did, isn't it?
I made a mistake.
You killed Riva Steenkamp, that's what you did.
I made a mistake, my lady.
You're repeating it 3 times. What was your mistake?
My mistake is that I took Riva's life, my lady.
You killed her. You shot and killed her. Won't you take responsibility for that?
I did, my lady.
Now say it then. Say yes. I shot and killed Riva Steenkamp.
I did, my lady.
Okay.
Then the prosecutor introduced this video of Oscar Pistorius at a shooting range.
It's a lot softer than brain, but
You did, you said. It's softer than brains. Who else got brains?
I was in that whole sentence, I was referring to a zombie.
What we can see there is the effect the ammunition had on a watermelon. It exploded. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
You know that the same happened to Riva's head. It exploded. Have a look.
The image was too much for many spectators, including Riva's mother and relatives. We've blurred the photograph.
It had the exact same effect, the bullet that went into her head.
I was there that night.
That's it. Have a look there, mister. I know you don't want to because you don't want to take responsibility, but it's time that you look at it. Take responsibility for what you've done, Mr. Pistorius.
My lady, I've taken responsibility by me waiting and not wanting to live my life, but waiting for my time on this stand to tell my story for the respect of Riva and for myself. I've taken responsibility, but I will not look at a picture where I'm tormented by what I saw and felt that night. As I picked Riva up, my fingers touched her head. I remember. I don't have to look at a picture. I was there.
The prosecutor questioned why Pistorius didn't know Riva was in the bathroom and why he missed her getting out of bed.
And you didn't see her get up?
No, I didn't see her get up, my lady.
Why not?
I don't know how she got up out of bed. I was in close proximity to her, but I didn't see her get out of bed. Whether she walked off the foot of the bed or if she got out, I didn't see that, so I can't say that I...
But at least you'll agree with me that if I say it is strange that you did not see her get up, you will agree. She was with you.
It was pitch black and it was behind me, my lady, so it's not strange at all.
The prosecutor closely questioned the details of Pistorius' version of events.
At that stage, when you shouted and screamed at Riva to phone the police, she is 3 meters away from you. In a toilet.
That's correct, my lady.
And she never uttered a word.
That's correct, my lady.
It's not probable. In fact, you knew that Riva was behind the door. And you shot at her. That is the only thing that makes sense.
It's not true, my lady.
She was talking to you. She was standing right in front of the toilet door talking to you when you shot.
It's not true,
That's the only reasonable explanation for her standing upright. That's the only reasonable explanation why you shot her in the hip, where you did.
It's not true, my lady.
The cross-examination lasted more than 4 days. Pistorius broke down several times.
I can see that Mr. Pistorius is distressed, and I understand that he should be distressed. So, Lady, may I then ask that the court just adjourn?
At the end of his testimony, questioned by his own defence barrister, Oscar Pistorius read from the Valentine's card Riva left for him on the night she died.
And then it says on the front of the card, roses are red, violets are blue. And then on the inside, she wrote the date on the left. And then on the right, she says, I think today is a good day to tell you that. And then it says, I love you.
The defence then called other neighbours, not included in the prosecution case. These neighbours lived closer to the house, but unlike the prosecution witnesses, said they only heard the cries of a man.
I heard a man crying. And to me, the cry, my lady, it was a cry of pain.
The person was very desperate for help. So also we felt that probably he's in danger.
I then heard the sound of a male person crying, a very loud sound.
Is it possible to make a sound that would resemble it?
But in the voice of a man.
Defence witnesses also offered expert testimony on ballistics, forensics and acoustics. A sound engineer questioned prosecution evidence that shouts and screams could be heard 177 metres away.
At 177 metres away, if the scream was from the toilet, it is very unlikely that a listener can hear the scream, let alone interpret the sound source reliably.
A psychiatrist claimed Oscar Pistorius was suffering from generalised anxiety disorder, which may have affected his behaviour on the night.
That the accused present himself as an outpatient to the medical superintendent of the Vetkopi's hospital.
That theory was ruled out after a 30-day assessment, though one psychologist's evaluation was presented by the defence.
No evidence could be found to indicate that Mr. Pistorius has a history of abnormal aggression or explosive violence. when Mr. Pistorius' appraisal of a situation is that he might be physically threatened, a fear response follows, which might seem extraordinary when viewed from the perspective of an able-bodied person, but normal in the context of a disabled person with his history.
The final defence witness was a sports physician who had worked with Oscar Pistorius for 6 years. Professor Wayne Derman told the judge that Pistorius had shown signs of psychological stress and that his disability does make him feel vulnerable.
I've also found Mr. Pistorius to be hypervigilant. It's a looking around, it is a scanning for potential threat, so with an end to move oneself out of harm's way.
He recalled his last conversation with Oscar Pistorius before the shooting.
A call I received from him on the 2nd of February 2013. I then asked him how life had settled down after London, to which he responded that he was at that moment lying next to the most wonderful girl that he had met. He also told me that he could not wait for me to meet her.
On August the 7th, the trial entered its final stages. Barry Steenkamp, Reeva's dad, had recovered sufficiently from his stroke to attend court, where he came face to face with Oscar Pistorius for the first time. Summing up, the prosecutor said Pistorius' version was not reasonably possibly true and contained lies.
You tell one and it just becomes too much. You just have to keep going and keep going with these lies.
The prosecutor focused on the shooting, arguing that Pistorius would have been aware of the potential consequences.
If you fire 4 shots into a small cubicle with a high-powered firearm, with black talent ammunition, you foresee the possibility that you will kill somebody.
Reeva's parents listened to the closing arguments for the defence. Advocate Barry Roux said that Oscar's version had never changed. The shooting was a terrible accident.
He was anxious. He was fearful. And he stands now with his finger ready to fire if necessary. And he stands there. And then, if I stand behind someone with his finger on that trigger and he's in a fearful state, I may clap my hands behind him. In some instances, the person will fire, reflexive, in some instances not.
He focused on the timeline, saying the shooting had most likely happened at 12 minutes past 3, but the prosecution claimed it happened 5 minutes later at 3:17 a.m. If that timing was wrong, it weakened the state's case about the timing of shots and screams.
That the state proved to you that the only reasonable inference is that the shots were 3:17 and that inference excludes all other reasonable inferences. You have to ignore all these probabilities and all these objective facts to do that. We say, never ever. It cannot be. It cannot be. And that's the difficulty in the state's case.
And as to why Reeva did not respond from behind the door to Oscar's shouts, he offered these possibilities.
She could have done 2 things. She could have given us position away. She heard him screaming, intruders in the house and I must get out. Or she can think, I must hide, I must keep quiet, I don't want to get him to me.
September the 12th, 2014. 193 days since the trial began. 574 days since the death of Reeva Steenkamp. Judgment Day. South Africa does not have a jury system. The verdict was down to presiding Judge Thokozile Masipa, assisted by 2 assessors.
Mr. Pistorius, please stand up. Having regard to the totality of this evidence, in this matter, the unanimous decision of this court is the following. On count 1, murder, the accused is found not guilty and is discharged. Instead, he is found guilty of culpable homicide.
Guilty of culpable homicide, manslaughter. The shooting was negligent, not deliberate.
In respect of count 1, evidence led by the state in respect of this count was purely circumstantial. It was not strong circumstantial evidence. Moreover, the evidence of various witnesses who gave evidence on what they heard, in what sequence, and when proved to be unreliable. The accused denied the allegations. Notwithstanding that he was an unimpressive witness, the accused gave a version which could reasonably possibly be true. In criminal law, that is all that is required for an acquittal. The accused was clearly not candid with the court when he said that he had no intention to shoot at anyone, as he had a loaded firearm in his hand ready to shoot. However, as stated above, untruthful evidence does not always justify the conclusion that the accused is guilty. Conduct of the accused shortly after the incident is inconsistent with the conduct of someone who had intention to commit murder. He acted promptly in seeking help soon after the incident. He shouted for help. He called a friend Stander. He called 911. He called security, although he could not speak as he was crying. He prayed to God to save the deceased's life. He was seen trying to resuscitate the deceased, and he pleaded with Dr. Stipp to help, and he was distraught. From the above, it cannot be said that the accused did not entertain a genuine belief that there was an intruder in the toilet who posed a threat to him. Therefore, he could not be found guilty of murder. However, the accused acted negligently when he fired shots into the toilet door, knowing that there was someone behind the door and that there was very little room in which to maneuver. A reasonable person, therefore, in the position of the accused with similar disability, would have foreseen that possibility that whoever was behind the door might be killed by the shots and would have taken steps to avoid the consequences.
Afterwards, members of the Pistorius family responded to the verdict.
We would really like to show how deep grateful we are for Judge Masipa that he's found Oscar not guilty of murder. And we had never any doubt in Oscar's version of this tragic incident. We as a family remain deeply infected by the devastating tragedy event. And it won't bring Riva back, but our hearts still go out for her family and friends.
Oscar Pistorius remains free on bail until his sentencing hearing in October. The verdict of culpable homicide could mean a prison sentence of up to 15 years, but the judge could decide to suspend the sentence or impose a fine. In their first interview after the verdict, June and Barry Steenkamp gave their reaction.
Very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. It's never going to settle with us that the outcome. You know, they believe his story, and I don't believe that story. That's the difference.
I feel that all of this could have been prevented right in the beginning, before the case, and I'm talking about Oscar Pistorius. If he thought that there was somebody there, his balcony windows were open, he could have shouted for help. He could have pressed an alarm. He could have done everything. We wouldn't have had this case today. And there, right from the beginning, that is why I don't believe the story. Because there are so many things that he could have done to prevent this catastrophe.
Did they still forgive him?
Yes, I don't want to carry poison in my body from that. You know, if you're going to keep on about that person and going on, you know, you're just going to make yourself ill. You have to get past that.
Before I forgive like any forgiveness, I want to talk to you first. That sentence won't be anything nasty or anything like that, but I'd like to sit down and have a talk to you. And I'm sure that will come about.
No, it will. He did ask to speak to us, but we weren't ready for that quite a while ago. You don't actually want to talk to someone who's done that to your child.
It's not to say that you will forgive or anything after having a chat, but I'm sure it will help.
Did they think the trial had delivered justice for Reva?
No, definitely not. Very, very disappointed. And very sad. It's sad, you know, because you want that for Reva, justice for her. And she died a horrible death. A horrible, painful, terrible death. And she suffered, you know. And he shot through the door. And I can't believe that they believe that it was an accident.
And what of the future?
There's never going to be closure. Especially now with this verdict and, you know, how can there be closure? She's not coming back. We just have to try and move on with our life, you know. I'm going to build shelters for the abused women, raise money for that.
We're not the only ones in the world that are going through a crisis like this or have been through it. But I'm sure that most people will understand, you know, what we've been through, and I would just like to see it all come to an end now. And for ourselves to carry on.
I wanted the truth. I don't think we got the truth. That's the whole point. We did not get the truth.
Less than 2 years earlier, the paths of two young and successful people crossed.
Hi, I'm Oscar's date tonight. He needed a date at the last minute, so it's like, Reva, just throw your stuff together and come and be my date.
Their destinies now bound together. The glamorous model and the world's most famous disabled athlete. Now Oscar Pistorius must begin to live with the judge's verdict of how he killed Reva Steenkamp.